Jim, a lot is happening in the world of Modiphius in the month of March. We have so many new releases out.
Yeah, gosh, it is March now, isn't it? Yeah, we had the, all the backlog of stuff that was supposed to come out last year has finally come out this year. So, we got Shackleton, the Player Guide, the Game Master Guide, and the Tricorder set finally hitting stores in the UK and the US. And we got some regular digital releases coming out, and got more stuff coming that we still haven't announced yet. So stay tuned.
So much gooey goodness, We can't keep up with it. And I know that one of the exciting things, which we talked about on our last podcast, was the opening of the Discord server for Modiphius 2. So we've been seeing a lot of activity, a lot of ideas on there. One of the things that we've talked about is modeling characters. So today's show is actually, how do we watch something on TV, see something Star Trek, maybe not even Star Trek, and we model it for our game? For those of you who are just tuning in, we are continuing conversations. I'm Michael Dismuke, freelance writer for Star Trek Adventures RPG, also one of the bloggers on Continuing Mission, which is the #1 fan site for Star Trek RPG, Star Trek Adventures RPG. And Jim Johnson, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure thing. Jim Johnson. I'm the project manager and line editor for Star Trek Adventures by Modiphius Entertainment.
Yes, and I call him the man who never sleeps. I literally don't think you ever sleep. Do you sleep like 4 hours a night?
I sleep a little bit, but I'm usually up, late hours, early mornings, getting stuff done. Taking care of the family, taking care of the day job, working on this game. So it's a passion. Making it happen.
Well, it shows the quality of the books, and of course, how easy it is really to use and how fun it is to use. So let's jump into modeling characters. Jim, one of the shows out right now is Prodigy. What's your take on it? Tell us your take on Prodigy.
I'll be completely honest. It took me a while to warm up to Prodigy. I think the first couple episodes just didn't feel Star Trek-ish to me, and it took me a little while to warm up to some of the characters. Although a couple of them I warmed up to really quick, but like that first half of the first episode did not feel like Star Trek. And I was actually watching it with my 6-year-old, and he watched it, and I could tell he was getting a little antsy about 20 minutes in, and he was like, "Daddy, you said this was Star Trek. Where's the ship?" And like right about the time he said that is when they discovered the protostar. So like, even though he's only 6 and he's only watched a handful of episodes, but we've read a lot of the books, right? A lot of the kids' books, a lot of the golden books. So like, he knew like Star Trek equals a ship. Like, you need to have a ship. And once the ship showed up, then it started to veer more towards Star Trek. And I really got into it. I've watched the first 10 episodes and really digging on it now. So I'm excited about it. How about you?
Oh, I mean, I'll say it before and I'll say it again when we were going through the player's guide, it is a total introduction and lesson on how Star Trek works, from the basic technology to the prime directive to what it means to be a Starfleet officer in comparison to just some ragtag person flying through space. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. And as I mentioned before, I almost wish it would have come out before we started writing the player's guide, because I had so many ideas sprung from Prodigy. And again, it's hard. I think one of the hardest things, for a lot of Star Trek fans, longtime fans, is to see something presented that's different than what we're used to. The initial reaction is bias. and it's interesting how it really models real life like that. But I've been noticing as I sit through with Prodigy, I'm really starting to enjoy it because it makes me understand why I'd rather be on a Starfleet ship more than anything else.
For sure. It's interesting. You raised a good point that we developed the Player's Guide and the Game Master Guide before Prodigy came out, and we didn't have access to anything. We don't even have the Prodigy license, right? So we didn't have access to anything related to Prodigy except for what we were seeing online. Little teasers and little pictures and stuff that they were posting. And what really struck me is what you were just saying, is that episode by episode, they kind of teach you the franchise, right? They teach you the basics of the franchise, how technology works, how science works, how the transporter works, et cetera, et cetera. And like that was literally my mandate for you writers on the Player Guide and the Game Master Guide is like, let's target part of the book at somebody completely new to Star Trek, and let's try to explain it in understandable terms so that we're not trying to overwhelm people with 55 years worth of the franchise, right? And it was just funny to see that kind of parallel thing going on. So like, now, and this is the whole point of tonight's episode, right? Is like somebody who wants to do kind of a Prodigy game could take the Player Guide, watch Prodigy, and you're off and running. You got everything you need between a core book, whether it's the Klingon core book or the Starfleet core book, or even the new Tricorder Rules Digest. Use any of those points of entry and the Player's Guide with the new player options that are in there, and you're good to go, man. It's good stuff.
Now, I don't know about you. I'm going to ask you. I've never actually asked you this before. When I'm watching Star Trek, I'm going to go back to when I was playing RPG in a different franchise, Marvel. Yeah. I would watch it and I would be modeling the characters as I watch what's happening in the comic book or watch what's happening in the movie. Now, with the Star Trek episodes out, I also do this. So for the listeners, for the people watching this right now, let's talk about the process of modeling as we watch. And Prodigy is a great show because it started from scratch. You have no back history on these characters, so you can start modeling raw. So what's your first tip and trick when it comes to watching a show and modeling as you watch?
It's tricky because like I want to do it right away, right? Like first episode, I want to model what they are, but I know it's tricky because especially with Prodigy, right? They gradually revealed stuff about the characters episode after episode. And so if you only relied on episode 1, you would have an incomplete picture of that character, right? So like if I were going to model characters for Prodigy, I had to wait until the first block of episodes were complete so I could look at that totality and go, okay, here's their values, here's their focuses, here's all that stuff, and just try to make it work that way. One of the challenges though, right, and we can see this with Discovery and Picard especially, is that we can make an educated guess about where those characters are at the end of the season or whatever, but the next season comes out, the producers and the writers could completely invalidate that and go a different direction, and we'd be like, well, shoot, we took our best guess on that character sheet, but now we don't know. Now it's something different. So you just have to make it work. But no, usually I try to watch as many episodes as I can, and then try to make a good guess. You can't always do that, especially with like guest characters. Right. Like if you wanted to stat up like Lon Suter on Voyager, right? You've only really got 2 episodes to make it happen, so you just gotta make your best guess on those 2 episodes.
One of my favorite characters. Thank you for mentioning him. I want to say I always have my phone next to me when I am watching the shows and I'm taking notes. And so I thought today what we could do, your one method where you watch the whole block, I do that too because I always go back and rewatch them, especially if I'm assigned to actually model a character for Star Trek Adventures. Now I have to take it super seriously. But for myself, I always kind of have the phone next to me. So let me show you something. Now, I understand some of you are listening to the podcast, so I'll just go ahead and explain to you what we're seeing here. And of course, you could always go back and watch it. So what we're seeing here is if you go to continuing missions and type in Pioneer roster, that's the name of our ship. It's USS Pioneer. It's a Google Doc that you can take a look at. It's open to everybody. You can't edit it, but you can view it. And you're going to see that I actually keep each one of my data files in one big document. And that way my players can reference it any time, or if they need an exobiologist, they can Google, they can search, Control F search exobiologist and find all the characters with exobiology. So what I'm showing on screen right now is one of the star characters from Prodigy, Gwen, and it's at the point in the episodes when she finally has a uniform, excuse me, and she's been granted the uniform. She's an official cadet, and this is what I have so far from the notes I've taken from the character. I'm going to give a shout out to Memory Alpha, which gave me the tagline up there. Again, this isn't being sold. This is just my own use here. And so for Memory Alpha, I was able to find a description for Gwendella, more commonly called Gwen, a young female. How do we pronounce that, Jim? I forgot.
The
Vaunakat, who lived during the late 24th century. She was the artificially created daughter of the diviner and was sometimes referred to as his progeny, or the progeny of Solom. Okay, so I just grabbed that little descriptor for my players in case Gwyn walks into here. And so what I'm going to do, and Jim, what we're going to do and kind of talk through, I've left some blanks up here. We're going to talk about traits, values, attributes, disciplines, focuses, and talents, which are really the basis of a character in Star Trek Adventures. All right. So far, the first trait I saw is, of course, the alien species, which is common. So Val Nakot. Anything else you would say, Jim, about traits that from watching the show you think that Gwyn exhibited?
I might almost do some sort of trait related to her father, something about being disowned or disconnected, or some angle on that, just to throw in some character growth options. Like if one of my players was going to play Gwyn, I would want to have a trait that's related to her being that whole relationship with her father or her creator, whatever that relationship is. It's a little unclear right now, but
I agree with that. Yeah. I'm going to put estranged from dad just for right now. Again, this is showing how we may model during the show, because how a trait works, we know during the game, is it can be used as a positive or a negative.
Right.
So maybe estranged from dad, and we saw her struggling with this during the show, her loyalty. She kept vacillating between her new crew and her father, the diviner. Sometimes it worked in her benefit to maybe get information and get into a close relationship with him to get information. Other times she almost betrayed the team. So I think that's actually a really good trait. Good example. Wasn't she also part telepath? I feel like she's telepathic with her dad, or empathic or something. I couldn't remember.
I think it's related to the technology that they have embedded in themselves. Because like when he wanted to talk to her, they both had like veins glowing in their skin. So I think it's a species thing.
Okay. Maybe in the future we'll see they're cybernetic, because they only really seem to work telepathy with each other. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. Now, talk to me how you collect values for the characters as you're watching the show. I put some here, but tell me how you collect values.
Well, yeah, I mean, you brought it up right before we started on this on Gwyn, right? Is literally, I mean, at this point, especially now, the last couple of years, because I'm the project manager, I'm responsible for the line, right? I have to know this stuff. Anytime I'm watching an episode, whether I'm watching it or rewatching it for the millionth time, I've got an old Alpha Smart Neo. It's an electronic typewriter keyboard, and I've got that next to me at the TV. So anytime I'm watching an episode, if I hear a line of dialogue and I think, oh, that's a value, right? I'll tap it down. If I hear it's just something come up in the episode about just some piece of backstory or some world building or just something interesting that I want to put into a book or a product somewhere, I'll jot that down, and then later I'll just dump all that text onto my desktop and massage it. But for values especially, I have found that dialogue is the best place to find values, because the characters are always speaking what's important to them, right? They're speaking their truths or their lies or whatever. And I can see just from this list that you came up with, you're doing the same thing. You're listening to their dialogue. And, I mean, at this point, I have subtitles on all the time, so I can read the subtitles, but I also listen to the dialogue, of course, because the dialogue and the subtitles don't always match 100%, which I find really interesting.
I always wonder how that happens. So for those of you again who can't see the values that I extract, and again, this isn't everything she said, or maybe something grabs you a different way, but I wrote things. The three things I caught that she said were: every language is a window into a new culture. I always wanted to see the stars. I care for the unwanted. And that's basically from my notes. That's what I got. And then I put last of the Val Nakot, which now I think of as more of a trait than a value. And so I might go back, which I will, on a rewatch, and maybe try to capture one other provocative thing she says to make a value to start playing. And of course, values change, as we know, in Star Trek Adventures.
Sure. Although, honestly, with Gwyn, like depending on where in the first season's timeline, maybe Last of the Val Nakot is a good value, because that could be like, do I want to go with the rest of the people on the ship, or do I want to stay true to my dad, right? Well, I am the last of the Val Nakot, so maybe that means I betray the new kids and go all in. I can see an argument for that being a trait and a value, but we could quibble.
Yeah, Yeah, and that's the fun of it. Is honestly one of the things you do during session 0 is make these decisions, and those conversations take hours to really nail a character.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now you notice under attributes and disciplines, I put a bunch of question marks, and the reason why, Jim, and I had to ask you as our resident expert here, is we know the player's guide now has an entire section on how to model children.
Mm-hmm.
And those attribute and discipline values are different. We know when you're usually dealing with adults, in Star Trek, we're assigning 16 points of attributes and 56 points of discipline and kind of spreading those out across the attributes and disciplines. But it works a little different way with children. So that's why I was like, hey, let's build this character out and hear how you decide on those attributes.
Mm-hmm.
How do you start measuring what they might be in those different roles of control, daring, fitness, insight, presence, and reason?
Well, if I'm building, there's two different approaches, right? There's the one approach is like, okay, I'm trying to build this character modeled after what we see on the show versus creating an original character. In this case, we're creating a character based off the show, right? So first of all, I need to pull up my screen and find the rules for generating children, because honestly, I haven't read them in a while.
And you know what? While you do that, I could stall because I actually now that I'm listening back to myself, I made a mistake. It's normally 56 points of attribute and 16 points of discipline. I said it the other way around, and I'm sure that people were like already starting to get me on Facebook and Reddit about it. So I said, let me correct it before they get it.
There you go.
So let's talk about attributes. Normally it's 56 points. Does it change for children?
I'm looking at that right now. Okay. I just found it. So, all right, they're not fully grown. Numerous steps to change. Species, we got the species. That's changed. All right, environment. Choose their environment. Well, I guess we don't know really, do we?
We'll have to, I think, something to look at. So let's skip that for a second and focus on just how we do our initial spread of points here for attributes. What do you do just to start your attributes? So, that's a lot of numbers, 56 points to spread out. So what's your habit to start it?
Well, honestly, I put was it 56, right? So I put 10 and everything, and then just lop off 4 points and start from there, right?
Wow,
so
you do it the exact same way I do it.
Yeah.
That's exactly how I do it. So
quick, lazy math.
Yeah. So let's fly through here real quick and figure out which of these she may have been lowest on: control, daring, fitness, insight, presence, and reason. My mentality is, because she's a child, she's, just looks like a young teenager, fitness would probably be the first one. She's not fully developed yet. So that's where on a child, I normally lop off points first. Do you agree?
Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree.
Okay. What do you think? Take 2 points off that just to see what happens?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's put her at fitness 8. And then what would you say? Where might you lop off another 1 or
control.
2 points? Control.
I take one off of control.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just trying to think through what I remember of Gwen.
My brain tells me, she's a little inexperienced and a little insight. Like maybe she has great presence, but when it comes to really knowing and certainty of the future and all that, I think insight might take a lop on a child. Be lopped off on a child, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is 56 points real quick, just to let you all know. Control 9, daring 10, fitness 8, insight 9, presence and reason both 10. Okay, great place to start. Again, if you go back to the player's guide, there's some rules about children. They may not make the math all the way up to 56. Makes sense to me. How do you plot out your disciplines?
Disciplines, of course, they all start at 1. So that's the easy starting point. And then we got 10 points to spend, right? I need to look through I'd have to look through the child rules. I don't remember them offhand, but right now we're making her as a fully blown adult, right? So
so total 16 points, right?
So I started at 1 each, and then I just add the 10. And I would give her a 3 command.
Okay. Sounds good.
Because I think she was the strongest command type character in the first 10 episodes, not counting the Janeway hologram.
Okay, so I like it. So you're looking at her strongest points and going from there.
Yeah.
Adding from there. Okay, what would you say the next strongest point she exhibited was?
Probably security.
I agree. She could fight.
Yeah.
3?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I would say for anyone listening to this, I would never put a child above a 4, because that, if you think about the rule of the one talent, which is the one for officers who are new. It's just
untapped potential.
Untapped potential. To me, it seems like every child would naturally never be over a 4 unless there's some superpower reason why,
Mm-hmm.
How do you think she stacked up in engineering and science?
I probably put at least a point in each of those. See, and this is tricky. This is where I'd want to look at the rules, because I know children shouldn't have 10 or shouldn't have 16 in disciplines, right?
Yeah.
So I'm assuming there's. Obviously, she'd be an adolescent based on the rules here.
Yeah, honestly, just again, you're winging it. People at home have flexibility to move the rules as they want. I'd almost stop here. I'd almost say, you know what? This is actually pretty fair, possibly. I don't remember her flying a ship. So con 1 might work. Or you could even take one of these attributes down to 0 too. We know that that's an option for new characters. And if I remember looking at the player's guide, they suggested, having it be like 0, 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, I think, if I remember 0, 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3 or something. So that's a possibility. All right, cool. So that's just a quick example of how we're spreading attributes and disciplines. Seems like we have a pretty common way of doing that. Now, did you pick up these same focuses? For those of you who can't see, I listed under focuses: acrobats, astrophysics, information technology, linguistics, swords, and starship mechanics. Do you know how I got those, Jim?
Other than just watching the show and watching what she does, no. Was there another? What's the secret of your success there?
She said it in a couple of these. She actually spoke like information technology. I would never come up with that unless she actually said it when she was getting into the ship systems at some point. And that's also where astrophysics came in, because I at first would not have thought her big on astrophysics until she said it, that she was trained in it. So that's the easiest way. In fact, I was just thinking the latest episode of Discovery, not by the time this comes out, but the latest episode of Discovery introduced one of the characters around the table, and they named his 3 focuses. And I was like, oh, that's super easy to model. And so if they say it, definitely go with that. The other ones were just things I watched exhibited by her, like swords, right? Swords and acrobatics, starship mechanics. Right.
Yeah, and this is where we could quibble, right? I don't know if I'd go with swords. I would probably make that a little broader and go with bladed weapons. And then starship mechanics, I'm not sure what starship mechanics related to. Is that like engineering, or is that
it was one of the things that was said. So that's where I pulled that up, is it came up popped up on a screen when she started getting in there.
That should be bladed weapons, not bladed mechanics.
Oh,
that's a quibble. That's a quibble.
Right. Thank you. All right, cool. I like that. Yeah.
And, that's good.
Cool. All right, let's talk talents. Talents are such a broad and fun subject in Star Trek Adventures. How do you go about picking out talents for characters you're watching?
Honestly, it's generally, I'm taking notes, right, when I'm watching the character, and I try to get a feel. Like, obviously, I want to have a broad understanding of what talents are available in the game at all, and then just kind of like jotting down notes. It's like, what is she doing? What is she really good at? What is the stuff that she's doing on screen that could kind of sort of be translated into a game mechanic of some sort, right? And I think for her, the great examples are whatever that technological telepathy she has with her dad it might be a talent, although it could be a trait. Granted, given the nature of the Vaunacat that we may not entirely know. I forgot the name of it.
The heirloom.
The heirloom that changes shape that she could control with her mind. That's certainly it would be an attack, and it would also be, I think, a talent to be able to control that thing, whether it's telekinesis or some other thing. That would probably be a unique unique talent specifically for her. I wouldn't make it something that somebody else could just claim.
Yep.
Yeah. How about you?
Yeah, to go to your point, I always sit there thinking, what's the difference between a focus and a talent? And I think of a focus as an area of study, a special area of interest that the person has kind of dove into and refined, whereas a talent is a little bit more naturally born. And so I'm in agreement with you that she obviously has a penchant for martial arts. She moves like a gazelle. And there obviously was something else in there with some resistance to telepathy. We saw that exhibited in the show. And again, going back, telekinesis. Somehow, I don't know if it's telekinetic weaponry, cybernetics, nanoprobes. I don't know what she's using. But if I was modeling it, she'd used it so often, you got to give it as a special bonus. She used it to tie up people and trick out people. It's such an obvious part of her character. It has to be in there.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So that's just an example. This is just a start. This is just a rough from watching the first episodes. Anything else you do to tighten up a character after you throw it together like this?
Yeah. I would take a shot at picking 4 talents that seem to fit, and then, browse through the different books and maybe even look at the character builder just to see, is there a talent? Is there like a cross species talent that would make sense to fit in here? Because we've got a ton of species now, and because I'm the GM, I can pick a GM discretion talent if I wanted to, because we haven't done the Belnacot yet, and who knows when we'll get to it, but hopefully we will. But if I find a good talent that makes sense from the Shackleton book or some other book, it's like, okay, you know what, that fits, and I may just change the name of the talent and then just drop it right into the character, because that's the whole point. Like even the core book says, if the terminology of a focus or a talent doesn't fit your character, then change the title. And I know that some people get really antsy about that, especially like the D&D players. Like I remember this from D&D, like every feat had a specific name. And if you were so that you had a common language at the table, right? And so if you had that feat, everybody knew what that feat did. But in this game, it's like, well, you pick a talent, and like the talent has a specific function, but if that talent doesn't fit your character, at least in terms of the culture or whatever, you can change the name. It's not going to hurt anything.
Yeah.
Anyway, I digress.
No, I agree with that. I in fact think it makes characters richer. We're going to talk about it in upcoming weeks when we talk about the Shackleton Expanse book. But we know, for those of you who have dove into the Shackleton Expanse, there's a culture called the Tilakal. They have some amazing technology. And one of my players said, I don't want to just be great at technology. I want to be a specialist on Tilakal technology. And it changed the whole way the character is written in the game. It's beautiful. And maybe later on we finish the Shackleton Expanse and it'll become a secondary talent or focus of the character. They can move on to another one. That's a great thing about Star Trek Adventures, is even after you model a character, it's not set in stone. Every episode it can evolve. Cool. All right. So as a reminder to everybody about this, right now, Modivius does not have the license for Prodigy yet, right, Jim?
That's right.
Okay. But should it stop people from playing a Prodigy game?
No, not at all. Like I said, it was just happy coincidence, honestly, that the player guide came out about the same time as Prodigy did, and that I want to pat myself on the back and say, oh, great for us and Nathan for getting the child rules in here. But we knew we wanted to do that, and it just worked out. It was just one of those happy circumstances that we put child rules in this game, in the player guide, and then Prodigy came out. It's like, oh, hey, look, we may not have the Prodigy license yet, but if you want to build the Prodigy crew, totally can do it with the player guide now, and the options in here for children. So you could have done it with the core book. It would have been a little bit of a kludge just to make the numbers massage and stuff, but now you can actually do it. So if there's a group out there that wants to play kids who stumble upon a Starfleet vessel or a Klingon vessel or a Romulan vessel, whatever, I don't know, go crazy, have fun. You can do it. Right, and we give you some advice and some rules around it so that you can confidently go boldly.
Yeah, my heart leaps, jumps and leaps and bounds when I hear about these people out there with their families, their kids actually playing Star Trek Adventures RPG. One of my players, he plays with his children, and they're having so much fun with it. And so I love the fact that Prodigy, the player's guide, families coming out of the pandemic or got into Star Trek Adventures, it's so wide open for everybody right now. It's so fun. And if anyone has questions about how to make it work, they can find us. Where can they find you, Jim, to ask questions about if they need advice
anywhere?
On this?
I think anywhere Star Trek Adventures is being talked about online. It's Facebook, the official forums, Reddit, and our new Discord. Right, we have an official Modiphius Discord server now. So go talk there. I'm also on a couple of fan run Discords, which are pretty cool. They really appreciate having people to talk to. But yeah, not hard to find. I'm on Twitter too. So anywhere we talk about Star Trek Adventures, look for it online, and you'll find me, and you'll probably find Michael too, because you're on most of those sites as well.
Yeah, we'll help you model. We'll help. We're excited to see it and see all the creation that the fans do. Since the fans produce stuff faster than CBS possibly could, the universe is expanding at a much faster rate in fandom.
Yeah. The fans have a great advantage in that you don't have to go through the approvals process. So you can just go straight to market, right? You don't have to wait.
Exactly. Speaking of fans, we're going to keep a tradition here and make sure that we go out of the show with thank yous. And I like always thanking the brick and mortars that are out there supporting Star Trek Adventures and the players. So I am going to take it to Keith Jacobson, is one of the Star Trek Adventure fans, and he goes to a store called Around the Table in Linwood, Washington. So everyone get a round of applause for Around the Table, Linwood, Washington. Thank you for supporting RPGs. We love the brick and mortars and can't wait till we start flooding back into those. Right, Jim? Anyone you want to thank?
Yeah, I mean, just today, given things that are going on at Modiphius, all the products that are being worked on, not just on Star Trek, but just across the entire company. I want to give a shout out to the whole graphics team, everybody involved in putting the books together, graphic layout wise, especially the graphics team, right? Because they are often the unsung heroes of Modiphius. Because like if you look at the entire company and all the product lines that are being worked on, it's the same relatively small cadre of graphic designers, whether they're staff or freelance, that are working on literally everything. And how they manage to keep it together. I know that Kieran is in charge of the workflow and everything, and he does an amazing job every day, just like juggling all this stuff. So shout out to the graphics team at Modiphius for doing an amazing job on every product that we're putting out.
Yeah, and I'll sit over here. I have my look over here. I do have my cool tricorder set. So I've been salivating.
We're gonna do show and tell. Hang on a second.
I'm really enjoying the tricorder set. Love the coloration. I'm walking around the house scanning my wife every opportunity I get, telling her what she's all about.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I literally just got these last week. The player guide.
Oh, good. I don't have those yet. You're killing me.
I had to get them shipped in from the UK because they're not in America yet. But soon, they're happening soon.
He's showing off the handy Game Master's Guide and the Player's Guide for those of you who aren't seeing. And I have to say,
Player's Guide. This is the one. That's the one that has the kids' rules in it.
Oh, and I have to say, I can't touch them yet. I've only seen them in photos, but the etching and the way the light glistens on them makes it foil like a real ship. And what amazing design.
Yeah, and Stephanie at Modiphius is the one who designed this with the foil and the embossing or the debossing actually on here. And the leatherette has a great feel. Like if you got the Klingon, and I know you got the Klingon Collector's Edition, that leatherette feel. Oh, it feels so good. Yeah, it's the same. It's the same leatherette on these two books, and you'll see more. Preview. You'll see more of that in future products. So.
Well, it makes it feel biblical. I think I told you that. It made it feel so biblical. But I have to give Stephanie a shout out because I remember early on you showed a concept piece of it. And I was like, okay, I was thinking to myself, it's kind of a little flat. But where I love graphic artists is that they can sense the finished product. And those came out so awesome on picture. I can't imagine what they look like in real life. So I can't wait to get mine up on my shelf. Yeah,
I'm excited. And, I have to admit, I'm super jealous of the Dune books that are coming out right now. Like the Dune Collector's Edition stuff that Modiphius is putting out are just amazing. And I was talking to the production guy, Pete, and because he knows all about putting books together, And there's so much more we could do with books, but like the more cool stuff you do, the more expensive it gets, and it just gets to be cost prohibitive. But like, you know, putting the gold edging on the side of the books, or you can even get to the point where you can do a design, print a design on the edge of the paper. And it just gave me all kinds of ideas. It's like, oh, I don't know if we have the money to do all this stuff. So we'll have to see.
And I know you're always telling people to save their latinum for these books. And I want to remind people, because sometimes, I'll hear some people are like, oh, is it worth the investment? And everybody has different economic circumstances. There was definitely a time where I could not buy some of the RPG books that I wanted, but eventually they come around. You know, you'll pick them up at shops. I have to say, what's so different about it, though, and why it's such a good investment is you buy DVDs maybe to watch a movie, but after 2 hours, it's over. And that movie's not going to do anything but tell the same story. Right. For me, the money I've always spent on my RPG books unleashed thousands of dollars of imagination that I didn't have to pay for once I got it. And so for those who maybe are getting into RPG for the first time and are looking at the price tag, the experience is like no other. And that's where I say, you know, the art that's put into the book, the quality of the books is worth it, at least for me. And if you are patient, eventually they do come around, the books somehow. Someone will be, you know, on eBay saying they don't have time to play anymore because they got married. And you'll get the books that way. Yeah.
No, I mean, seriously, we could spend a whole episode talking about the value of an RPG, right? Because you know, I mean, the core books aren't cheap. I'll be, you know, honestly, it's like $50 for a core book, but like, especially for Star Trek Adventures, you really only, and you know, I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to, because, you know, it just is. But like for your group, let's say you have a group of 5 people, you really only need one core book, right? Sure. Everybody doesn't need, because like this game can be run so rules light that you don't need 5 people flipping through the book at the table. So like, let's say you have 5 people at the table, you have one core book, maybe you run, I don't know, 20 adventures, and each adventure is 3 hours long. So you've just put, you know, hundreds of hours of value in that one core book. And that's like, you can't beat that.
Well, I'm laughing too, because I think the universe kind of balances out, because I literally have 5 core rule books. I have 2 Klingon and 3 regular, plus the starter pack.
It all works out.
I think the game...
It averages out.
All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in again. We are going to be diving into the Shackleton Expanse book. It's been out for a while, and the only reason we decided to revisit it again is because it's not losing steam. People are playing through the games. We're hearing a lot of excitement about it. I picked the book apart. I'm having fun with it. So we're going to start talking about that in the next episodes of Continuing Conversations. Thank you, Jim. Great episode.
Michael, thank you so much. As always, live long. Oh, where am I? Live long and prosper.
ID. Oh, wait, you challenged me last time. IDIC. There you go.
Oh, you're doing the double gun. All right.
Well done. Double gun.
All right. Peace and long life, my friend. Catch you next time.